Hello again, and welcome once more to my study. It's good to have the opportunity to share another assembly with you. I wonder what comes to your mind when you hear the word compassion. Perhaps kindness, understanding, sympathy, loving? In these last COVID months, we've all learnt a lot about the importance of showing compassion. We've seen amazing compassion in the work of doctors and nurses, looking after people in hospitals. We've seen compassion on the faces of neighbours and friends, watching out for those they love and care for who've had to isolate and stay at home, doing their shopping or telephoning them to assure them that they haven't been forgotten, trying to make sure that they feel that they have some support when they've been really missing the company of others. We've also seen that showing compassion can sometimes be something that's very costly. Sadly, many doctors and nurses and others who've been caring for people with the virus have contracted it themselves. Compassion, kindness, understanding. These are all very special qualities that we've come to value so much. We know how good it is when people are understanding, compassionate, kind to us. It really helps us and encourages us. So it's important that we remember to show compassion to those around us as well. In several of his parables, Jesus talks about showing compassion and how important this is. In one of those stories, Jesus asks us to imagine a king who was going through his accounts and seeing who owed him money. As he did so, this king discovered that one of his servants owed him a huge amount of money, 10,000 bags of gold, millions of pounds. The servant would never ever have been able to repay his master. And so the king ordered that the man, his wife, his children, and everything he had should be sold. The servant was terrified by this. He fell at his king's feet and begged him, "Please be patient with me, and I will repay you," he said. Even though it was hopeless, he never would have been able to do so. But as Jesus told the story, he said that the king had compassion for his servant. Now, the New Testament was originally written in Greek. And the Greek word for our word compassion is a wonderful word to get your tongue around. In Greek, compassion is splagnizomai. Splagnizomai. It means not just casually feeling sorry for somebody. It means to be so deeply, deeply moved by their troubles that you cannot but want to do something to help them out. Nowadays, we think about compassion springing from the heart. The 14th of February is, of course, St. Valentine's Day, and there will be cards and boxes of chocolates and goodness knows what, all covered in hearts. For us, the heart is what we say is the kind of the seat of emotion. But for those Greeks of Jesus' day, it wasn't the heart that was the seat of emotion, of love, of compassion. It was the stomach, strange as that seems to us. They thought that when you were deeply moved by somebody's troubles, It was as if your tummy turned over. You really felt deep inside for them. I just wonder that if these ancient Greeks had had a St. Valentine's Day, what they'd have put on their cards instead of hearts. But anyway, splagnets am I, to be deeply moved, to want to show compassion. So back to Jesus' story. The king feels deeply for his servant who owes him so much. And out of compassion, he lets him off this huge debt that he owed. But then there's a twist in the story. This forgiven servant, who has been let off repaying this huge sum, goes out and bumps into a fellow servant who owes him not millions of pounds, but 2 or 3. And this servant, who had had such compassion showed to him, grabs his fellow servant by the throat and virtually throttles him, demands that he pays up the few pounds that he owes. Now this fellow servant couldn't pay up. And like the forgiven servant, he pleads for compassion. Give me time and I'll pay, he says. But the forgiven servant is far from compassionate. Instead, he has this fellow servant thrown into jail along with his wife, his children and his goods, sold until he could pay. Not compassion, but selfishness, we might say. Well, not surprisingly, this servant's friends, who saw what had happened, go to the king and tell him the whole story. And also, not surprisingly, the king was furious. "You scoundrel," he says. "I showed compassion to you when you appealed to me. Why didn't you show compassion to your fellow servant in the same way?" Showing compassion, showing understanding, showing kindness is so important. It can make all the difference to other people's lives. We know that because we know what a difference it makes to our lives when people are kind, understanding, and generous to us. It's worth giving it a try. Thank you.
Tricia and I are now going to sing you Beauty for Brokenness, written by the wonderful Graham Kendrick, a Scot, probably the best Christian songwriter of our day. And what I love about Graham Kendrick is the words are superb and so are the tunes. And to find somebody who can write both tunes and words so well is a real gift. Here we go.
freedom to share. Peace to the killing fields, scorched earth to green. Christ for the bitterness, his cross for the pain. Rest for the ravaged earth, oceans and streams, plundered and poisoned, our future, our dreams. Lord, and our madness, carelessness, greed, make us content with the things that we need. God of the poor, friend of the weak, give us compassion, we pray. Melt our cold hearts, let tears fall like rain. Come, change our hearts from a spark to a flame. Lighten our darkness, breathe on this flame, and until justice burns brightly